258 million people in 58 countries are going to be food insecure in 2024. Does the world owe them something? In a recent global humanitarian overview report published by UN, it points out that over 300 million people worldwide will require humanitarian assistance. Just think about it. It's a huge number. They need our assistance. Now, just imagine it, had the world been fair, just imagine had the world been just, there would have been no question about humanitarian aid. Every human being's needs would have been taken care of. But the world isn't as fair and just. That's precisely the reason there's a kind of an international consensus that humanitarian assistance or humanitarian action or humanitarian aid has to be there. And today in this session, we'll explore the question of humanitarian aid. We'll explore the ethical issues involved in humanitarian aid. On the face of it, humanitarian aid sounds so simple. There's a human being in distress, a stranger in a far-off country is in dire distress. You volunteer to help the person because you have the resources and you know very well by helping the person, it's not going to impact you much. So you choose to help the person. That is what is humanitarian aid. It sounds so simple in theory, but in practice, it's extremely complicated. The larger question practice arises, why should I help? Oh, who should help? How should I help the person? And the bigger ethical question, are they my responsibility? Let's understand humanitarian intervention first. Humanitarian intervention refers to the coercive interference in a sovereign state to prevent or end massive human rights violations. The key word here is coercive. That is, you're forcing yourself. Why? Because there are human rights violations you notice. That's humanitarian intervention. Let's come to the second one. Humanitarianism and humanitarian aid or action are terms widely used among aid workers and NGOs. The term humanitarian is used to denote altruistic, apolitical concern for human welfare. The focus is on humanitarian need and relief. Now look at the key difference. Humanitarian intervention is coercive, whereas humanitarian aid is altruistic. Humanitarian aid or assistance is more of a compassionate response. When you see a human being suffer, it's the element of compassion that motivates you to go and help the person. So compassion is a key value behind humanitarian aid. And as I talk to you right now, there's a person somewhere in the world who's suffering. And when you see somebody suffer, yes, you would like to help the person. Now, interesting, the person who's suffering is being helped. Whenever there's a person who's suffering, there'll always be somebody from his family, somebody from his neighborhood helping. But nowadays, what you see is professionals come out to help. You'll see Red Cross worker helping. You'll see an aid worker coming to help. You will see foreign governments try to help a person. For example, recently, Turkey had an earthquake. You could see aid workers going to help citizens in trouble in Turkey. So that's the philosophy or that's the idea behind humanitarian aid. If someone asks me what is humanitarian aid, in one single sentence, this will be my reply. Humanitarian aid, action or assistance is all about respecting, protecting and saving human life. As we enter into 21st century, as we enter into 2024, what we can see is the need for humanitarian assistance growing. In fact, recent UN report pointed out that there are almost 300 million people in the world who are going to require assistance. That means we almost have 300 million people who are needy. Now, on one side, we have needy people. On the other side, what we can notice is humanitarian assistance has expanded greatly. So this shows we have needy on one side. On the other side, we do have people, we do have countries in the world who are ready to help them. In fact, the expansion of humanitarian aid shows something about we as human species. It shows that humans as species have evolved morally. In fact, any corner of the world at any given time, there'll be somebody who will be a victim of sexual abuse, who will be a victim of natural disaster. And believe you me, the world is ready to help these victims. Because we as human beings have realized one very important fact, that we cannot stop things from happening. We can at least reduce suffering. Helping somebody in distress is the most easiest thing to do. You have the resources, you have the wherewithal, help the person. Sounds simple, right? But when it comes to humanitarian aid, it's not that simple. Helping somebody who's a victim of natural disaster in a far-off country requires speed, requires logistical facilities. So organizing humanitarian aid is not that simple. Sometimes it becomes a logistical nightmare. Sometimes you're trying to provide aid in a country which is politically disturbed. So on one hand, you're trying to save somebody in a different country where violence is rife. So what you're doing, you're trying to put your life at risk to save somebody. These are known as providing aid in a conflicted region. So humanitarian aid is full of issues, operational issues, logistical issues, a lot of issues. But we'll not be talking about these issues. I'll focus on ethical tensions that arise out of humanitarian aid. Yes, there are some ethical issues involved in humanitarian aid. We'll discuss that. Besides the logistical and operational issues, humanitarian aid also raises two big ethical questions. The first ethical question is, why should a country help other country? Is it ethically justified? That's the first question. Second, there are a lot of ethical issues that arise during the supply of aid. Let me take the first question. The first question is about, can aid be ethically justified? Now, let me give you a situation here. There is country A, which is well off. There is country C, which is not very well off, which recently became a victim of natural disaster. And at the same time, the country C is rife with political instability, political conflict. So people are suffering there. And to compound matters, they recently had a natural disaster. Now, country C needs help, desperate help, food, medicine, water. Country A is in a position to help. But before helping country C, the people in country A will have this big question, why should I help? Fine, a human being is in distress, but why should I help? How can I ethically justify to my own citizens? What moral justification I can give to my own citizens? That's the first question. Now, this is where the question of moral justification of aid comes in. And usually philosophers and academicians justify this from two perspectives. They justify humanitarian aid from two perspectives. First one is called rectificatory justice. I mean, these scholars go back to colonial days. These scholars point out most of today's countries who are not well off have been victims of colonialism, have been victims of imperialism or imperial policies. That's why they need to be helped. So that's called rectificatory justice. That's the first one. The second one is more ethically loaded. Here we talk about something called beneficence. That is, as a human being, I should talk about welfare of human species. We should be a little altruistic as species. We have to consider that other human beings are in distress. So there's nothing wrong in helping the other person if I have all the resources. And most importantly, by helping the other person or by helping the other country, it's not going to impact me too much. I can spare that much of resources to help a country in distress. That's called value of beneficence. The second issue is about efficacy of aid. Fine, country A decides to help country C. It sends in material, it sends in food, it sends in water, it sends in all the supplies. Country A assumes that in country C, the aid will be distributed efficiently. And country A assumes that this aid will help the victims in country C. But in reality, it's a different scene altogether. Once the aid starts getting distributed, it raises these three questions. The first one, that aid is frequently misappropriated. Second one, the economic objection to aid is that market for local goods and services is destroyed when they are provided for free. Third issue with aid, the moral objection is that aid is demeaning. It is motivated by pity, not respect. In presuming to manage other people's welfare for them, it compromises their dignity and treats them with insulting condescension. Besides these issues, Hans Singer raises two other issues. The first question that Singer has is this. He asks a very straightforward question. Countries help other country with charity as a motive, or there is national interest as a motive? What is the motive? I'm helping you because of charity, or I'm helping you because by helping you, I'm helping myself. Singer raised a very interesting second issue. Singer points out, imagine country A helps out country C with aid, with food, with material, and country C is able to use the aid properly and efficiently. And result of this aid, country A starts improving. Aid absolutely made sense. But, change of scene. But the same aid was used by a vicious political regime in country C to prop itself up using that aid. Then the aid becomes questionable. Humanitarian aid is ethically commendable, but at the same time, it raises a lot of ethical questions. And these were the questions we discussed today. Do share your thoughts on these questions in the comment section. Happy learning. See you soon.